somewhere. We got 3. Sit there. Okay. What everyone should have, thanks for coming, you should have a stapled copy. And what this is just a draft of a solar application that Mr. Glancy was kind enough to prepare for us as a result of his attending the meetings and listening to the input from the community. And then you should have a list of things that the public brought to us at our very first meeting. Yeah. So I think what we want to start with is going through this individual list. And I think we were confused that night about what should be considered in a solar application and what should be considered to be in the ordinance. So that's what I would like to start with, is just looking at the single page and making a decision or some comments about whether we think that's an ordinance item or a solar application item.
Do we want to officially start this meeting?
Yes, we want to start
down
this
that
meeting.
road.
We are officially starting this meeting. You want to do the
Okay.
pledge and all that?
Well, I don't know how far, I just want to make it.
This is official.
Okay.
The solar application meeting is in progress
Okay.
at 7:17 on August, what's today? 2024. Thank you all for coming. Okay. So, these were the comments that Mr. Glancy was kind enough to take for us at our very first meeting. And I just wanted to go through and see if we can talk about what needs to be in an application and what needs to be considered for a solar ordinance. Now keep in mind that our goal is in the September meeting of the Area Planning Commission, which is going to be the second Monday, correct? Because the first Monday is Labor Day? Right. Yeah, we are hoping to have a list of solar amendment topics that we will discuss in a group to try and get feedback from the public. That's our goal for the September meeting. And then we'll schedule meetings to talk about that group of subjects or topics as was recommended by Mr. Glickfield at our last meeting. So the comprehensive plan, well, we're working on that, so we know that was the meeting before this one, so we'll just check that one off as the comprehensive plan. Setbacks?
I'm sorry, Randy, what's that mean? That it's not gonna be here and not gonna be part of the, application then, or it's not gonna be part of the?
The comprehensive plan?
Yeah, it's gonna be completely separate, right?
Yes,
So we can cross it off this list.
we are crossing that off.
Sorry,
because
I wasn't-
The comprehensive plan is its own,
Okay,
it's its own little thing we got going
all
on.
right, right, yeah.
Okay, so setbacks. How do we feel about setbacks? An ordinance
Item
item?
already in the ordinance? Why are we, it's already in the ordinance.
Okay, Roy, to clarify, these were concerns that were brought,
I know, but these concerns are people that haven't read the ordinance apparently, because setbacks are already defined in the ordinance.
Okay.
Which ordinance, 4 or 7?
The only one that's currently active, there's only one that's currently active.
Which one?
4.
so we're going to agree the setbacks go in the ordinance.
They go in the ordinance, yeah.
Correct. Okay, that doesn't mean, Roy, that we couldn't have amendments to the setback portion in the ordinance. Okay?
Okay.
Money for decommissioning? We're going to classify decommissioning's in the ordinance, correct?
It's already in there also.
All right, so that's an ordinance.
But now, does decommissioning also in the application that there is a decommissioning plan, a decommissioning, which would include the money,
Could be.
right? So in the application, it's a check mark,
Okay.
yes or no, right?
Okay, so,
Because that's what the application is, kind of a yes, no.
yep,
Do we want them to have a nice big plan for the commission? You'd agree to that, right? That there should be a plan That's what we're saying. There should be a plan.
They already have to have one because of the ordinance.
Right, and so in the application, we're just saying, it's just a check mark. Oh, we have a plan.
Are you going to have a plan? You don't expect them to have a plan at the time of the application, right?
No, so they get the application, right? Then they go through and they go, oh, I'm gonna do this, and it's a check mark, yes.
Right.
Okay, so it's just, it helps you.
You have to
right?
go to that extent
Yeah.
of doing the plan just to apply.
So it's in both. Can we have
Yes.
both?
Yes.
All right. It'll get faster.
Tax abatement?
I don't understand that. Well, I mean, why is that?
Is that an ordinance topic?
What's the question? You know, what's the statement? Tax abatement, they can't file
Well,
for?
so these are just topics that people have brought up through all different areas. Okay,
What's
so
your
it's just-
definition of what that means? What's that mean?
people are concerned about it.
Okay.
Where does that go? Where does that concern go?
Don't tax abatements usually happen much after a project is approved and everything? Why is it any different than Dollar General's tax abatement?
Tax abatement, according to the ordinance now, comes before the application,
It's not
or,
mentioned in the ordinance.
or between the application and the development. It's in the current ordinance in two different ways, which is a bit confusing.
Commissioners in Wells County, they knocked the tax abatement out. You know, I mean, why reward?
Well, okay, so that's a good question. In Wells County, it's in the ordinance that there are no tax abatements. So it's in the ordinance.
Okay,
It's in the ordinance, it doesn't seem like.
just needs to be
in
cleared
the
up.
application.
Okay.
Yeah.
buffer zones? That's gonna be under soil water area, I believe. That's gonna be an ordinance item,
Right.
Yeah, it's already in the ordinance. yeah.
okay?
And then that's kind of also in the application will be covered under certain plans and so
Okay.
on, so.
Buffer zone maintenance and landscape plan, I would say that's an ordinance.
Ordinance.
I would say,
And since it's a plan, it's application.
I would say water runoff is an ordinance. I would say groundwater contamination is in the ordinance. Monitoring water wells would be in the ordinance. I can get through this quickly, and you guys can argue with me if you don't agree.
Well, why are we monitoring the water wells for what?
Contamination,
Which are coming from what?
solar panels.
There's no leakage on the solar panel.
Well, you know what? Wait.
No.
We're wanting to put it in the ordinance, and so when you get to the ordinance, when we discuss what's gonna be in the ordinance or the details of the ordinance, those discussions, those details will be at that time,
I know,
right?
but you're insinuating that they're causing contamination, and that's just simply not true.
Well, we're just gonna collect the data to see, right? We'll collect the data to find out. That's what we're doing.
So that's an ordinance.
Ordinance.
Okay. Okay, informing the public, does that apply to either?
I didn't understand what that line item meant.
Well, it's a concern. People,
Oh,
not everybody gets informed about when public meetings are and what's the best way to do that. No, it's not an ordinance or,
Yeah, notice
Yeah, it's
requirements.
not solar specific.
Notice requirements might need to be in the application.
Okay,
As this,
Okay.
is that box checked that the notice requirements are fulfilled?
I agree with that.
I will.
Okay, battery storage? Is
That would be
an
something
ordinance?
addressed in the ordinance.
Okay,
There's no batteries in these applications, so I'm not sure why it's in there even. There's no battery.
I'm looking forward for the future, right? If this is gonna be successful, you're gonna need battery
I
storage.
tried to buy land for them already, down the road from me, about half a mile.
Now,
disclosure,
Yeah.
disclosure of financing, that'd be an application, correct?
No.
Disclosure of ownership, foreign domestics, an application. Long-term plan for the companies, an application. Company's histories, an application. Reports on the performance of previous solar projects would be an application. Has the company complied correctly with all laws at every level? Application.
application.
Yeah. Fines, lawsuits, that kind of thing.
limit the size based on the capacity of the grid? That's an ordinance?
I'm not sure why that's
You don't think that is, Jim?
responsibility rather than the actual grid and the provide EDP's problem, right? Why are you guys trying to limit the size of the inputs in the grid?
Oh, the grid.
Yeah,
There's no point in putting up more power generation devices if the grid can't handle it.
right, and that's called,
That's some that's planning. You have to plan that, right?
yeah, right. Yeah, you would think people wouldn't build it if they couldn't sell it, right? So there again, I'm not sure why that's county responsibility to make sure the grid can handle the
That's
capacity.
yeah.
Silly.
Well, Roy, I want to just share that there's nothing that says that all this is going to go in there. We're just trying to help.
Yeah, I know, you're trying to get a long list. Yeah, I know what you're trying to do.
Oh,
That's kind of silly. That's a silly one.
What's your name?
okay, so maybe limit the size base needs to come out.
Tell them it's there,
Let's take that one out.
both sides.
Well, how about if we put that in application? Has the company at least talked to the grid operator and they're all okay?
Yeah, is there an agreement to buy the electricity?
Okay,
That's fair enough. I think actually they've got a buyer before they even.
Yeah,
develop
and do they have the right wires and, all the infrastructure needed?
So we're gonna-
That application.
we're gonna change that one, buyer. For the electricity. Okay, conflicts of interest with companies in county? Is that an application or does it apply? I mean, these don't have to apply, they don't have to go either or, we can scratch.
I'm not sure why that applies at all.
Well, I have a real world example where the people that are signing off on it have a vested interest. And so I don't know where that goes. I really don't. Like if I'm approving something, regardless of what it is, I shouldn't be benefiting from it. I should be able to recuse myself from saying this isn't okay.
Right,
You
I
would
would
need
hope
to.
that.
Pardon?
You would need to
Yeah.
accuse yourself if you're benefiting directly from it.
Or your
Not
family
allowed.
members. What about your family members, right? Like your cousin or your sister. It gets fuzzy, right?
It gets fuzzy, but let's say you're a county commissioner and you have farmland that you want to sell to someone who's doing a solar, you need to just get completely out of the conversation because what you're doing is creating an ethical violation.
And which,
That gets real fuzzy because of what happened in Madison County with the Lone Oak Solar Farm. It was approved,
Okay?
initially by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And one of the persons that voted in the second vote recused herself the first time in the first vote because she had a conflict. A good friend was going to benefit by leasing property.
Okay.
But then, when her vote was needed in the second vote to pass, she voted. That went all the way to the Indiana Supreme Court that ruled that that conflict did not apply.
Seriously.
Yes, so that the conflict is not being upheld so much in the court system. Madison County, the people that were suing thought they would win, for sure, but they lost. So it's a little bit of a gray area now as to conflict.
I agree, it's a fuzzy gray area. I would hope that the people that are involved here locally, because my ethics would never allow me to do that.
Yes.
right,
agree.
I'm not accusing you, you understand. It's like, where's the checks and balances for that? And it isn't even part of this. Maybe the checks and balances is your personal ethical.
conflicts is out.
Okay, good.
Where does solar equipment originate from?
The other side of that coin too, I mean, you know, whatever, if you've got a gas well and you personally have a gas well, why would you vote against solar? Why would you be allowed to vote against solar? I mean, the conflicts is very, very real and needs to be considered. But there again, I would like to think that all commissioners would exclude themselves if they had a gas well or was a shareholder of whatever, a nuclear plant or whatever, a conflict, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
the
whatever
conflict
it is,
might
they
be.
should, yeah.
Now, APC commission members should be approving the development plan. Grant County is kind of unique, having a solar ordinance that gives the approval to the county commissioners, the commissioner board, the 3-member commissioner board, which is what makes draft 4 illegal.
Which makes what?
Draft 4 is illegal. It is not a legal ordinance because of that flaw. And that's only one of the flaws, but anyway, that's a glaring flaw. So that's one thing that'll have to be changed. Commissioners have no stated role in approving zoning decisions in this nature. That's BZA and APC territory. APC has exclusive authority to approve the development plan.
Okay.
As far as conflict of interest as an elected official, as long as you fill out a document within the clerk's office and state what the conflict is, whatever entity you run or business, and then as long as that's filed, then you would be allowed to vote.
Okay.
There's a form that elected officials fill out.
I don't see anything about the county roads, you know, they come in with this big equipment, they're gonna tear up the roads.
That's gonna be part of the development plan.
All right.
That's where the highway superintendent comes into play. And there's been some dialogue take place between Blackford County and Grant County because there's some shared on the county roadway there, the county line. You know, we've had communications with Blackford County in regard to how we're gonna manage that and what fees we're gonna assess or, you know, what the expectations are.
They put that in theirs.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be an ordinance item.
So Randy, did you say that the conflict of interest is just gonna get scratched?
We're gonna scrap that. That's kind of an arbitrary, tough to prove deal,
Okay.
What?
conflict of interest.
Well, we could put an application that the form is filled out, I don't know. Shane brought that up. It's something physically you can check mark, right? You've got a form filled out.
If you're an elected official.
Right.
Okay.
If you're voting on, yeah, and it didn't even fit there, it doesn't. Okay. Okay, yeah.
And it usually comes down to now, are you directly benefiting financially
Right.
from a development?
That's where the rubber meets the road.
That's where it pretty much meets the road anymore. If you have a relative or a friend that benefits, no, that's not something you can prove.
Okay.
I still like, council member told me one time that just because you serve, you don't leave your right to an opinion at the door. I agree with that. So, okay, the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 are dealing with the manufacture of the panels, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have a problem with requesting information about the panels that are gonna be in place on our farm ground for the next 35 years?
Do they know when they're gonna get approval? I mean, the thing I struggle with that is, how are they gonna know what's the current panel that they're, using at the time of their application? How long is it gonna take to get approval? 6 months later, they might be using completely different panels.
But, well, so,
That's a concern.
yeah, that's a concern because, and I've been back and forth with Trina, I see she's online, and other representatives where you can't have 30-year safety data on something, and then it be so new that we don't know what the catalog number is.
I didn't
And
say new, I said different.
all I'm saying is you can't have those two things at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can put it in there and say it's gonna be this one, or this one. They should have, they put 5 in there, right? As long as they all meet the criteria.
The criteria of, what criteria?
Those six things, like bring up, hey, where's the MSDS? Where are all the information for all these things? I don't see any place where they can't put in 5 different solar panels.
Okay, yeah.
Okay? Does that work?
I'll let Trina speak to it, but I would think it would be doable, yeah.
Yeah, that's an application item. Okay, company's plan for total acres. I believe that's in the application. That was in the ordinance checklist, I believe, that Mr. Millant put together. IDEM's role, I don't know about that. Thoughts?
Well, those questions are there.
Can you put in there where they have to be made?
Back it up, yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Ted. I was gonna go, as far as I know, there's only one solar company producer, or solar panel producer, I'm sorry, that will recycle, take their stuff back and recycle it, it's in Cleveland.
In Ohio.
You know about that? Okay. I think that's pretty, substantial when you look at the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we would make that a requirement for just the solar company. Did we do
Well, if
that?
God creates the biggest ass hailstorm you ever seen in your life, what are you gonna do with it?
That goes in landfills, what they'll go to.
Perhaps.
But why don't we?
Just like your cell phone and your TV and everything else that would, why do we care
So we
where
just-
they remove that to?
Maybe that's why we got so much crap in this country.
It may be.
Hey, gentlemen, please, hey, we're gonna do, I can end this real quick. We're gonna be orderly here and respectful, or we're not gonna have it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I didn't either, I just didn't know if everybody knew that there's only one place I know of in the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
China.
Well, we have in here, where does the solar equipment originate, okay? So what country was it made in? And the components. So I tried to cover it, and I was looking, I thought I had it in there, so, does that suit you? Okay.
Roy, I understand that this is personal for you, and I understand that. I believe that the intent of developing a solar application with greater detail is to make sure that we have an understanding of the company and the products that are coming into our county, even though they would be placed on your property. That doesn't mean that that couldn't at some point impact other members of Grant County, other residents in Grant County in some way. I know that there is a belief that there isn't contamination, that there isn't an issue with recycling. I understand that there are belief that there isn't any fear, but there's also a belief that there is concerns related to that. And I think we have to look at that objectively on both sides. And I think that is what our responsibility is to make sure that we're looking outside of the box a little bit, to make sure that we've created a situation of safety for the future. You and I are going to be gone at the term of these solar panels. There is some obligation to make sure that we've envisioned what could happen into the future to protect those who come after us.
Sure.
That's the
No,
goal.
I couldn't agree more.
That's
Obviously,
the goal.
looking at it objectively is obviously what we should be doing.
We appreciate your comments. I do want to keep order, if I could, please. We're going to honor your comments. We're going to ask that they come respectfully, and I'm going to ask that the responses be respectful also. Can we do that?
I
Jim?
don't know. We can try.
I haven't called a sheriff deputy yet. I don't feel threatened, but I could.
Randy, I'm gonna play man in the middle.
Please.
And I'm always, I'm never gonna be one side or the other. I'm always gonna be straight down the middle. But the question here on manufacturers and stuff like that, from my office's input, would we ever be put in a position where we have to deny a solar company solely based on where their panels come from?
No. I don't know that would,
I don't know.
okay.
I mean, we have a right to draft an ordinance, and, I mean, some government agencies have been told from one time or another, buy American, use American products. That's a choice, I think. If this county wants to say, we require made in America and we require that these things be recycled at the end of their useful life, and that there'll be a plan for making that happen, and it is updated every 5 years or so to make sure that the plan's adequate. Those are things that can be put in there. Others have done that. Now,
And if it's
does it
different-
make it more possible that there'll be a legal challenge? Maybe so.
And the federal government tells us where we can and cannot buy oil. I mean, that's just an example, right?
Yeah.
Of a product that I know of that we're directed that we can't do that. Now, would it get down to this? Who knows? But at least we have it in there as a check mark, and you have the information if something like that would come upon you to make the decision, right?
But those are all things that we're going to decide in the ordinance probably, not in the application. The application will probably have a box to check on the things that are in the ordinance.
And I also want to interject that this is just the creation of a draft that will go before the APC, and the APC will discuss and approve the application. That's all we're trying to do, is just do some discussion, get some public input. It all have to be passed by the APC. And I think the quicker we can get something to place before them, the quicker we can, get resolution to this. Yeah. So I guess if it was to go in an application, those things would be in the application, right?
They'd be in the ordinance.
They'd be in the ordinance.
And a box to check on the application. Do you have this plan? Will you be doing this?
Okay.
Yeah,
Those
those kind of things. There could be other things in the application we might need to talk about first. We might want to learn a little bit about, okay, what is your experience? How many of these have you built? How many fines and lawsuits have you had as a result of your projects? I remember one of the solar companies came in at the meeting and showed a big picture of how nice their solar farm supposedly looks, saying, can you even see it? Look at it. You couldn't even see the solar farm. Well, is that how they're to be built? Should they be built so that they can't be seen? Should they be that well screened as the one they were showing? And maybe that's a requirement that we put in it. So there's things that we want to see about what they've done in the past. That would be good things to have. Let's have an aerial picture of their solar farm. Let's have ground level pictures of their solar farm. Let's see what these things look like. And have they been fined? Have they been through lawsuits? Have they declared bankruptcy? Who are their owners? Are they a publicly held company, or are they privately held? Who are their directors?
See, and
Let's learn a little bit about who we're dealing business with. That's only good practice.
wasn't there a county down in southern Indiana where a lien was taken out by the construction company on the farmer's land because something went awry?
you know, there's been all kind of nightmare stories out there on these projects, and where they've stripped the land, stripped the topsoil, huge amounts of erosion occurred, all kind of dirt flowed into local creeks and rivers, which is one of the hardest things to clean up at a water treatment plant, is mud. It's very hard to get out of the water compared to other things. But anyway, that kind of digressed, but there's tons of nightmare stories documented out there. We don't want to be the next one. We want to have somebody that does things right.
Yeah, Katie, you gotta,
I think, I'm not saying you're wrong or being excessive, and I'm not disagreeing, but I think what you're going towards doesn't need to go in an application, but more towards a public hearing, if that makes more sense.
I think it's got to be
that's-
documented.
And it can be, and it can be put in a public hearing folder for that specific thing that can go with a permit, but I think that doesn't need to be in every single application, in my opinion, from doing permits.
Well, this application is going to be very large, and it's going to require a lot of documentation that they're going to submit. If they want to get to the next step.
yes, Roy.
Back to the subject at hand, as far as where it's purchased, the equipment's purchased, I mean, are you guys gonna make that requirement on other companies too? Like Dollar General, that they can't have any processing machines that come out of Germany or France, or why are you requesting specific products to be used just for these solar projects, is my thing that I struggle with, so. I mean, I understand why, but, yeah.
Okay,
I don't think we want to be the next bad story in the media.
well, let me ask you something, as a landowner that's gonna have your land tied up for what, 30-some years? Would it concern you at all as to the quality of what they were gonna put on your land?
Absolutely, that's why the ordinance has in there that it has to be UL approved.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's already covered in the ordinance, so.
Okay. So I don't know where IDEM's role, where did that come from?
That was a question that people have asked, is where's
Would
their
they have to be
role at?
approved by IDEM?
It
They
does
don't
not.
have to be?
I don't think so. IDA is more of your water and drainage and things. You would want somebody who's experienced with our county personally, not a state person. It would take forever. So I would rather go through your drainage board and all of those things versus statewide.
Yeah. Items more of an after the fact type deal.
Yeah.
Oh, you call them in after it goes,
Well, I mean, I have people burning
Really?
all the time
Okay.
everywhere, burning trash. You call them after they get caught, you know what I mean?
okay, yeah. So, again, public didn't quite know where it fit,
Yeah.
Right.
we know now.
Decommissioning, that's an ordinance. Erosion control would be an ordinance. Drainage plan's gonna be an ordinance.
Well, that'd be in the ordinance, but in the decommissioning plan, or the application, we want a decommissioning plan.
Yeah, that'll be a box to check.
That'll be a box to check, right?
Check, okay,
So, in both.
okay.
Erosion control plan, kind of both. Drainage plan, both.
Of course, all those are gonna be in the development, correct? Correct.
You're saying it's both, or
Glare and noise plan? What's that one?
They have a plan for that, right?
So we gotta check it, right?
Yeah.
So that'd be an ordinance and an application. Rodent control. Application? Site plan, drainage, oil, gas wells, compatibility to local area. Application?
And then, do we have anything in the ordinance about where the gas oil wells, that sort of thing is? Drainage kind of turns into the drainage plan, that kind of duplicated there.
Roy, is there anything in the ordinance about identification of gas wells or oil wells?
No, there wasn't about, no. Does the county have that information? Well, we've been recorded in the county, and that would be the source of it. I mean,
I don't know.
no.
How much danger do you think it presents? right? Do we even have a count on how many gas and oil?
I don't know why you would be worried about identifying them. They're just gonna drill a hole and sink a concrete column or a steel column, whatever, 48 inches.
Until it blows. I guess I'm trying to figure out how many are out there to assess how big a risk it is that
I've seen
during the construction.
To the solar though, right?
Yeah, or whatever, how big is the risk? It's risk assessment.
To a, 2,000 foot oil well, I'm not sure is.
Well, if you hit the cap and it goes off,
Well, that would just be your 811 dig, wouldn't it?
be what?
The 811 dig or whatever.
And they would
it
have to have
is.
their land surveyed before they start their own holes for solar.
Okay.
To mark out all the lines and stuff before you dig anything.
So maybe that's the thing, we need to say that they called 811 dig?
Maybe.
No, they would have had to have had all that. That's, isn't that gonna be in the development plan then?
It's gotta be in the development plan, and the drainage tiles need to be located.
Yeah. And that would be in the development plan.
It
Well,
needs
that
to
would be
be,
through the drainage plan then.
yeah, or the drainage plan, yeah. But that's all gonna come with the development plan.
Yes, that'll all come in the development plan.
I had a question.
Yes.
Isn't the glare and noise abatement plan the same thing as a buffer zone, or am I wrong?
Buffer zone's gonna be trees, screening, to keep, so you can't see the panels.
Right, but wouldn't that block the?
Well, and then I think the glare, the other piece of it came from like if it's around an airport or from above
Okay,
kind of thing.
gotcha.
I think that was also a concern.
The other
I
thing.
should have got more details under everything.
No, you're
but-
fine, I was just asking.
Yeah.
See, a buffer plan, a buffer, I don't know how it is in our ordinance, but in a lot of the ordinances, if there's a house, the buffer is only relevant to around the house. Yeah, it doesn't deal with any glare or noise that could be occurring outside of the buffer zone. Is that your understanding, Roy?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
That's the way it is currently,
yeah, just around houses.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that may not be what we want.
Oh, I agree. I don't know. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're doing an application. Okay, so we've covered this, so we have a better understanding of what should or could be considered to be in the application. Right.
I got lost on the site drainage plan. We talked about it, but did it get struck or?
That would be something to be considered to be checked off in the application to make sure that the solar company is given consideration to that.
That they're going to develop on once the project's under development, you mean?
I would think that they would want to know that before they started development.
Really? Locate all the tile and everything before they have a plan approved by the APC? I don't think that's reasonable at all.
You don't think the farmer's gonna want that solar company to have identified where the tile is before the APC checks the development plan off?
Yeah, no, I don't think the farmer's gonna wanna know that until they know for sure that you approved it.
Oak
Have
Hill,
you approved it?
What
Is the
about-
question.
what about over at Oak Hill? They busted the tile over there, flooded in the school.
Yeah, I think a farmer's gonna wanna know
Better
that.
believe it.
At the time of application is the question. Why would they want to know at the time of application? I absolutely want to know before they drill their first pylon, but you can't ask them to go to the expense of surveying that entire ground, mapping all the tiles, not even knowing that you guys are not going to approve the application. That's not reasonable. I mean, that's a huge expense to go out and properly identify where all the tile are at and everything. Why would that be in the application? Why would that be an expense they would incur until they have an approved?
Well, what if it,
Proceed.
I think it's a good protection for the company, because what if they go to that, all the expense, right? And then get to the point where, oh, well, the tile is in such an array out here that we can't go by with our plan that we originally wanted to put all these tiles in. I think that makes perfect sense, even for the company. Yeah, because if the tile's out there, then it's like, oh, well, then this changes that plan.
Bivens farms like 3,000 or 4,000 acres, Ryan Bivens. He farms my ground over in Chester Township. And he come up with this, they put a lot of tile and they have like a tile plow. And he said, if they come in with this, they ought to pay them double what they put in, you know, for damages on the tile and stuff. But that doesn't do anything with the county tile. A lot of that tile, there's no maps for a lot of that stuff, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So they go random in there and then hammer them in the ground and bust the tile.
So I guess, Roy, what could be is just a check off that they plan to,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
yeah, I think that'd be a
That
compromise.
makes sense.
Yeah.
What did you decide on the last two?
Complete subsurface geological study completed. That'd be an application item. And I think they probably, I guess my question, Roy, is if a solar company's gonna come in, don't you think they've given some strong consideration to everything that's gonna be involved in that before they ever apply?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah. I mean, they've done soil surveys and everything
Yeah,
already. So,
that's
yeah.
kind of my thinking.
Yeah,
So I don't know that that would be out of reason.
well, water testing, I don't understand, but, yeah.
Do you know in your lease, did the solar company actually take lease to the water rights?
And they did not.
They did not. Okay, I'd heard that some solar companies were doing that.
Yeah.
They were taking lease to water and mineral rights. Okay.
That'd be crazy for somebody to sign that. Anyway, whatever, yeah, not in Indiana. That never happened in Indiana.
Okay. Okay.
And then, you know, that last part and the last thing we said is who's responsible. So like if you go back to the tile issue, and again, protecting the landowner is who is liable for that when they come in and break the tile and the next farmer over loses a lot of crop because, you know how it's all connected.
Sure, it's already in.
You know, who is liable for that? And just a question and trying to protect the landowners.
I think that's why it's important that they identify where they're at.
As soon as possible,
Yeah.
yeah, sooner than later.
Right. Okay. Mission 1's complete.
Yay.
At least we have identified that list. Let's go to the stapled portion. This is just a draft, a proposal, something to consider is all this is. Did you get one? Everybody have one stapled? Okay. Todd, do you want to?
You got one?
You got one?
Yeah.
You want to explain on how you come up with this, Todd?
Pardon?
Would you like to share with us how you came up with this?
So I took this list, basically, and merged it with a confined animal facility application. So I took that as kind of the backbone. And then comparing the stringency of how the counties already work against or not against, I shouldn't say that word, but have structured things towards the animal facility, confined animal facility structures, and then merge those two kinds of things. And so this is what I ended up with. So it might be a little the Frankenstein form, but that was my intent, was to take something that we already have in practice from the confined animal facility applications and then bring it up and morph it into for solar with these particular issues.
And one thing I want to share is before Ryan had left, when we started the application committee thing, I asked him to seek out other applications that other counties might have. So he came up with the Miami County planning and zoning application. And I don't know that it's format-wise, too far away from what we're trying to do here with what Todd has generated. I'd be more happy to pass this around. I only have one copy. I think the APC members got a copy that evening.
Do you want me to run up and go make copies real quick?
Would you guys like to have a copy of this? Yeah, okay. And then the other thing that Ryan had come up with, and it never was presented to the APC, which really kind of follows the same format as what that does, but it was a checklist. And this was more related to the ordinance or for the development plan, that the various areas were met within the development plan. So I don't think the format that's here is not too far away from what we've already had a tool to work with. So this doesn't apply right now. I can let you see it because it never got before the APC. Let me pass that around. You guys can look at that.
So then the other thing I wanted to put into the area plan, and that's just kind of me personally, is a lot of accountability, a lot of signage at the end of this. That each area has its own expertise, expert that wants to put their name behind this, that whatever, from the drainage board or the fire departments, that somebody's signature's on there saying, yeah, this fire department, we're all equipped to take care of whatever this issue is out here. Whatever could happen, we're equipped, we're trained, and we're good. And somebody needs to be accountable for those things. I don't know. Is that the way you bring accountability to, and people, instead of just people signing off stuff? That's okay.
So Andy, the checklist that you're having us look over, it looks like an application.
Well, I think that's what it was supposed to be, but I think it was targeted more towards making sure that everything was met that was in the ordinance. Is that the Grant County one?
Yes. But
Yeah.
towards the back end, it specifically says it's an application.
See, I don't understand why it wasn't presented to us as an application, because when we were asking about an application, we were told that we didn't have an application. Is that right, Ed?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's called Solar Energy Systems Application.
Okay.
The application packet. Is that what you
Yeah.
have?
Yeah.
And there was also, what Randy may be speaking of was the system summary.
And it says application in that too.
Solar energy system summary. Is that the one you've got too?
Yeah, that's the one where.
You got both of them?
He's not gonna make a copy of. He said that it wasn't really.
Well, it hasn't been, it's been shown to the APC, but we haven't discussed it
Okay.
yet. So I don't know that I want to issue that. We shouldn't issue that to the public.
Not if the APC hasn't reviewed it.
Yeah.
But it does say application, that's all I'm saying. So that's what.
Yeah, it does say it in there. Application in there. So, I mean, these are just like samples.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
and they are, but the one says Grant County, the other one says Miami County,
Right.
and maybe we shouldn't be looking at the one that says Grant County, because people might think we've already developed this.
Maybe I better get that one back.
Enough of the questions.
Well, it was developed, it just wasn't presented and approved.
Yeah, it was. And it
I'm just
looks
trying to be
official.
transparent. So the formatting, I think, as to what you've proposed and what we have as samples isn't that far off.
Yeah, and I didn't go down that road too much because I assumed it would go into your format, into your office and format it and letterhead and all that kind of stuff, make it official.
So I guess the question is, where do we go from here? Ted?
Are we doing this to application from the people who are gonna build a solar energy panel farm? Or are they gonna, if that's true, are they gonna build it and sell it to someone else? Or who's gonna run it? I guess is what I'm trying to figure out.
This would be an application that a solar company would present to the Area Planning Commission as the first step. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes.
As the first step in a possible solar development. Like if somebody wants to remodel their home or build a house, they fill out an application which is available online. And then once that application, you tell us the procedure.
So, once someone goes online or comes in the office in person and goes through with permitting staff, their application, what they're gonna do, whether they're remodeling their home or whether they're building a new home. Our staff looks at, first and foremost, are we building something in a floodplain? Because that is going to end up being a sticking point on a few things that has happened up there prior to me coming here. When they go through the permitting process, we look at zoning, we look at setbacks, we look at all the different varieties of things that will go on that property and make sure that it meets our ordinances. Then the permit can be issued.
But the application has to be approved before the permit can be issued, correct?
Yes, it has to meet all the criteria, setbacks, make sure they're not building into any type of an easement or, there's a large variety of things that they have to meet before we can issue them a permit.
Do you think that would be a reasonable application process for the solar company as well?
I do, because the solar companies are going to come before, they're going to come to us, they're going to fill out the application. To grant that application is going to be probably, once this is all said and done and solved, it will be approved through our office. They wouldn't have to come to the ABC board and present their case and have it approved by the commission. We would already have things in place at that time to where that application comes to our office, it gets approved by our office, then they can go and build whatever they need to build.
Assuming the development plan passes through,
Yes.
yeah, the proper channels.
Yeah, their development plan has to go through drainage and so on and so forth. It has to meet all the other criterias. But
And then I think Indiana Code says it comes to the APC for approval. Is that correct, Ed?
Well, according to what it is, a utility in agriculture, it would not be zoned for that. So it would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special exception. They would be the first one to review.
That's the first.
Yes.
The development plan?
No, they would bring in, the application would come
Okay.
to them.
yeah, because if it's not zoned properly, and 9 times out of 10 it won't be, if it's not zoned properly, then the BZA is the one that picks up the ball at that particular moment.
Okay.
So the development plan goes to the BZA first?
No, well, the development plan will then go to the APC. There's that period there where, okay, the application would get approved by the BZA for a special use, so to speak, a special exception. And after it got approval there, it would move to the APC, and the development plan would be the next stage. All the work for the development plan would have to be done for the APC to approve it. And then if the APC approves it, then they would pay the fees for the building permit. There would be an application fee to start the process and bring it to the BZA. So
So,
there may be quite a bit of information that the BZA will require to issue a special use and zone it for them.
But Jim's office's identification that it doesn't fall within the proper zoning would initiate it to the BZA, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Which is why that's what the BZA deals with, are things that don't fit into the area-wide zoning ordinance.
yeah, they don't fit on the zone table.
Okay.
Yeah, because if somebody wants to come in and they want to build too close to a property line, we can't approve that permit. It has to go to the BCA for a special exemption or a variance. So this would be the same thing. We would get their permit application, we would look at it, we'd look at zoning and all the other things that go along with that and say, okay, we can't approve this application, it has to go to BCA, or we have to run this past this board or that board.
Okay.
and then that would be a public meeting, right?
Yeah, public meeting.
And for what, I mean, of course, something this big would be put a notice out, but how small? Is it anything? They all get treated the same?
We're gonna have to hammer all these details out
Okay,
in the ordinance,
okay.
because that will be the guide. You know, there may be some areas and a lot of solar installations, be it small or smaller, that would not even come to the BZA because they might be on industrial land. They might be on warehouse roofs.
It already meets the requirements.
It already meets the requirements of zoning, but it would have a development plan then that would go to the APC.
Residential will be included in that package too.
Residential goes by residential building code, wouldn't come to the BZA, and they're small,
Right.
yeah. So,
Ed, did
small,
I answer your question?
Now you can close.
Tell us how you do it.
I don't mean you couldn't build it, who's gonna run it, that's what I was trying to ask you. But I have heard that if, say, I would come to get a permit to build this solar farm on my property, and I decide I'm not making any money, I don't want it anymore, and I sell it to I&M, then it becomes a public entity,
public utility,
and they can start at that point eminent domain around what I had built to expand. Is that true or false? That's what I wanted to know. Good question.
attorney, according to the attorney I consulted on that very question, the answer is yes,
That's what I figured.
they can do that.
So 1.5 miles from the solar farms doesn't mean
Now-
anything. If they sell it to a public utility, they can still come and take my property.
That would probably still go before the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. And at this point, the solar companies aren't doing eminent domain to take property. Doesn't mean it couldn't happen in the future or they couldn't petition them. The Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission did not take up the appeal by Lone Oak Solar on the Madison County solar farm that they wanted to develop. That's now moved on to the state Supreme Court, I think. I know it's moved on, it may be in the state appeals court, but it has moved on from there. So, anyway, eminent domain is a possibility, but it's not happening right now.
So are you asking should this be in the ordinance or the application, right? I mean, that's truly the question is there something that we need to put in the ordinance about utilities? Is that fair?
Yeah.
I have no idea, but that's the crux of the question.
Utilities don't pay property taxes either. kind of a concern if you're really doing this because you want to get large amounts of property taxes.
We're doing application.
That's all, these are all potential problems.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the application. We got 15 minutes, gonna be out here at 8:30. So, okay. Crew, where do we want to take this from here?
Do we have any additions to this? I mean, the only one big one I had was property rights. I don't have that in here at all. And whether we want to have, in the application, have you went out to all the people that's affected and having agreements for their property rights or not? Or is that ordinance?
You may need to check the box on what kind of notice is required. Will it be a sign on the property? Will it be publicly advertised? What are we gonna put in the ordinance? That's, some of these things, but anyway, they'll need a box for how is notification handled? Did you follow the ordinance on notification, whatever's required in the ordinance? There's nothing in the ordinance now. But that doesn't mean there won't be.
Right.
Jimmy, suggestions on where we want to go from here? I know you're coming into this.
Most of these things are gonna be handled through the BZA, and I'm not that familiar with our BZA here as much as I was in Wabash, but I know our BZA over in Wabash required notification in a paper. It required notification for every residence within 300 feet of the property involved. So, there was a lot of notifying the general public that this was going on and notifying the property owners around that this was going on. So I'm going to assume that would happen over here, where we would mark the property with a sign that says this property is currently asking for a variance to the BZA. And then we would, it's up to the property owner to notify all his neighbors. That's the way we did it over in Wabash. They would have to send a certified letter to everybody within 300 feet of the property to notify them of the meeting.
For the public hearing.
Or for the public hearing, yes.
And the property owner for the public hearing?
The property owner, so we set the date for the hearing. The property owner then sends a letter to everybody that lives within 300 feet of his property or her property, notifying them of that particular meeting.
Okay. Are you good with that?
I'm sure we will be, yeah.
That you're responsible for, and not the company?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
That's a lot of responsibility. I'd shove it on the company, but I just wanted to check, make sure you heard the conversation.
Well, that's something that can be guided by the ordinance again. When the CAFOs were being planned, a large sign was required on the property, the potential property of a possible future development. So something like that may be required here as well. And basically has the notification plan been followed or something to that on the application? Some of these things will just going to follow the ordinance.
And I guess I have a question for Katie probably. Is in my format, if you find out anything within that format that I can do different to help you put it into whatever kind of really pretty, an official format, let me know.
Okay.
You got my contact. You have this actual file, right?
Do you think you know where this is at that Ryan put together?
We could probably find it. What is the staff? What this is, what I copied?
No, that was the Miami as an
This
example.
is Miami County.
Yeah, if
I was going to catch you up.
Yeah, you want to make sure that whatever that format is, that particular file, that my information's easily merged. I'm trying to save you typing time.
I could probably just copy and paste it together.
Yeah. just try it one time, make sure our software's compatible. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna suggest. I'm gonna suggest that we review what Mr. Malott put together. We review what's been the Miami County one. We review what we've decided here to see if these items are in either of those, accompanied by what you put together.
Okay.
And try and summarize that into the next meeting.
If Katie can get me what Ryan put together,
I'm gonna give you a copy of that.
well, if you can get me a electronic version, and if that's allowed, right? I'll merge the things together and it will be really close to what you need.
Jim, are you okay if I just hold that to these three committee members?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could probably merge it really quick too. You wouldn't even have to do it. It honestly is just taking this and putting our letterhead on it essentially.
Well, there might be some content stuff in there, but that's okay.
Do we want her to do anything yet? Do we actually come to some conclusions about what we're gonna have her do?
That's fine. I'm
She's
looking
got
forward.
lots to do.
I might be looking forward too far.
Yeah, I don't wanna give her more to do unless
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
really a purpose.
Yeah, you don't have to merge it. I'm not at this point. Okay.
We're almost to the point where we gotta decide quite a few things about the ordinance before we can go much further on the application.
Okay.
It's good for them to work together in this, so we're not,
Okay. Just create a file and hold it. You got plenty to do,
Yeah.
okay? And then we'll just kind of take a look at this stuff. We're gonna be moving towards the ordinance here in pretty quickly. In a
Yeah.
month. Again, our goal for the September meeting will be to take some of the things we've heard about the ordinance that's on this sheet, kind of put them in groups as Mr. Glickfield suggested, and address those within meetings. Now, whether we call a special meeting or whether we try and do it in the regular APC meeting, which would be preferable, would depend on what our load is
Right.
for those meetings. And I'm gonna let you guys help me determine if we can shove some more in or not. Because I don't know, Jim, what you've got, what you're forecasting out as far as goals that you have.
Well, I know that some of the stuff we need to look at and, if we come up with a half a dozen things per night to talk about as far as these bullet points, then we can get through it relatively quickly.
Okay, that's my goal. And, Jim, I want your input on this thing also, so, in your spare time without any, that I'm sure you don't have, take a look and talk to me.
All right.
Public input?
I'm sorry.
Well, Ed, I think you need to go eat. Yes.
Sorry, I'm confused. So what's gonna happen with this one, the state? Is it gonna be incorporated into the earlier one that Ryan had done, or what?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, this needs to be updated with obviously the things that we took off the list tonight, right?
Right, that was
This
just,
has many words in it that weren't on the list that we discussed tonight, like insect and rodent control, for example, things like that.
yeah, we're gonna take a look at the three of them and just try to see how they might combine.
And that's gonna be done when? I'm sorry.
We are going to not commit to that yet, because we're gonna be dealing with the ordinance here pretty soon.
But after the,
And it's been proposed that they may work unilaterally together. Yeah, since we're struggling with what's in the ordinance and what's in the application, it might be that we just kind of work through them together. But I'll keep you informed.
and just so I'm clear, this board had the authority to reopen the ordinance, basically?
Yes, did you attend the last meeting when we passed the resolution that's in the area-wide zoning ordinance 153 dash something?
What, which meeting, I'm sorry?
Were you at the last APC meeting?
I thought so.
Okay, in that meeting, the area planning commission passed a resolution based on the area-wide zoning ordinance. What was it, Ed, 153-02?
I don't remember the
I
number,
don't care.
but yeah.
Okay, but I think that's important, Roy, because you could go back
I've looked at it.
and read that to see what empowered us to do that. And that aligned with the commissioner's resolution. The commissioners had given us a resolution back in June, July,
Somewhere in there.
for us to look at 4 things to amend the ordinance with. And those 4 things were setbacks. They were drainage, county drainage extension of 150 feet on both sides instead of 75, which is what the state calls for. It was total acres in the county. And what am I missing? Municipal setbacks was in there also.
Yes, it was. And I guess since the APC moved to do amendments and not take up amending draft 4, I kind of thought it was kind of a moot point on what the commissioners asked the APC to do. Because it didn't follow state code.
Yeah, I was only sharing that with Roy because it appears that the commissioners have some things that they would like for us to consider proposing as changes also.
Okay, and you think that was, I'm sorry, you're saying that was a July APC meeting?
No, that was given to us by the commissioners. They passed that.
Oh, it wasn't
in
in a
one.
meeting?
They passed it in one of their meetings.
Okay,
I don't know what meeting that was.
but the APC didn't bring it before the public to reopen it or anything like that?
No, we opted to go with the area-wide zoning ordinance 153 whatever that is.
Okay. Okay, so I have no record, no meeting I can go back on and see what happened then.
It's on the YouTube pages, I think. For the commissioner one, I think it was the June meeting.
Okay,
And then for ours, it was our last meeting.
well, it wasn't here, they didn't go to the
It
meeting.
was on our last meeting. It was,
Yeah, okay.
it was July 29th.
I was questioning.
July
That's so
29th.
funny.
If you want to go back and view the July 29th APC meeting, the discussion related to passing the resolution to amend the ordinance was handled then.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know it was a July meeting, okay.
And basically, the area-wide zoning ordinance follows pretty much state code, which gives the APC the authority to amend any ordinance in the area-wide zoning ordinance. And the solar ordinance is an amendment to the area-wide zoning ordinance. So the APC has the authority to create amendments, and when those are done, to give them to the commissioners for their review and to sign it or reject it or amend it. That process goes back and forth. We went through it once before.
Okay, that was my fault, I didn't realize there was a July meeting, I thought there was no meeting in July, so, yeah.
I thought you were here. I think you were.
Yeah. I first slept since then, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you were here.
I probably.
July 29th. All right. Thank you for coming. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.